As a musician, I've often wondered at the beauty and the power of music. You know, how did some composers write during the most difficult, toughest times in their lives? J.S. Bach, for example. His first wife died after 14 years of marriage, and of the 7 children they had, 3 died. Then with his second wife, they had 13 children, and 7 of them died. And towards the end of his life, Bach himself lost his sight and became totally blind. Now Mozart is the first famous child prodigy, but it came at a huge price. His father was greedy, tyrannical, and abusive, and that's tough. Mozart, despite fame during his life, his young life especially, died in poverty and was buried in an unmarked grave. We don't even know where his real body lies. Beethoven, arguably the greatest composer who ever lived. And yet, at the age of 26, he began to experience a hearing loss, and he spent the second half of his life in great anguish and pain and embarrassment at losing his hearing. Schubert, who was about 27 years younger than Beethoven, was unjustly and unfavorably compared to his idol many times in his life and even now. Chopin, he spent most of his life in very poor health and had a string of broken relationships. And Schumann, for example, this is a man whose parents and his sister all died within a year. His sister committed suicide. Schumann himself battled mental disorder and depression for much of his life, and twice tried to commit suicide as well. In all this, where was God? Could Jesus still speak through their music, maybe even without them knowing it or being aware of it? As I considered this, I thought of my own life. Times of rejection and betrayal, times of misunderstanding, and when people refused to give me the benefit of the doubt. Times where my character was being questioned, and maybe even the authenticity of my faith. Where was God in this? As a divorced Christian, many might consider, where was God when I needed him? How can he show his resurrection power in what I've gone through? And that was when I realized my life is exactly the kind that God uses for his glory. He thrives on being able to take lives that are broken and shining through them in a way that he gets the glory, not us. It's when people see and hear him, either in my playing or when I speak with them, and they're able to say, yeah, Julie has a hope, when she really shouldn't have any, you know, given all that she's gone through. And yet, because of Jesus Christ, I do. And it's this hope that I want to share with those, whomever God puts in my path. God uses his gifts of music, given to Bach and Beethoven and others, so that he can show his power through the beauty of song and music in a way that cuts through time and language and culture barriers. While I can do my part, I can practice, and many hours of that too, only Jesus can take my performance, can take my hands and use it and turn it into something that can touch someone else's heart and unlock that bitterness, to give them a hope that can only be found in Him. I consider it a great privilege to be able to bring God's hope to a world that really needs Him. And if you feel that this is something that is of God as well, would you prayerfully consider financially supporting me in this venture of bringing God's hope through my testimony and music, that others would come to know His love as well. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you as you consider this for His glory.